Any ardent Assassin's Creed fan will be well aware that each game tends to come with its own central gimmick. In Syndicate, it was the ability to switch between two sibling characters, in Black Flag it was an emphasis on sailing the high seas, and so on. In the case of Assassin's Creed Mirage, however, this tradition has very much been halted, largely because said gimmick is explicitly in how there isn't one. Not really, and that's by design. Mirage is instead a return to the franchise's old school style in almost every sense, for better and worse. And if, like me, you're someone who has missed the stealth and the act of actually assassinating, you'll be elated, just not particularly blown away or surprised. In fairness, there are a few extra bells and whistles to speak of. They're just not all that game-changing. Pickpocketing, for instance, has been completely overhauled compared to how it used to work in prior games, with the need to awkwardly hover your hand near an NPC to score some coin, replaced by a single button press followed by a simple minigame where you must match a shrinking symbol to the zone slot. It's an approach much more aligned with Basim's slyer tendencies as opposed to, say, Eivor's outright thirst for war as seen in the last major Assassin's Creed release. More impressive is how pickpocketing has a much better use here than it ever did before thanks to the new token system. To be clear, tokens are broken into categories that can buy you specific perks throughout Baghdad, be that reducing item prices by a percentage in shops, paying a preacher to reduce your notoriety, remember that, and even unlock special chests. Small features like this are embedded throughout the undeniably throwback experience that Assassin's Creed Mirage intends to provide, slightly massaging familiar systems and mechanics as opposed to outright overhauling them. All this might sound like I'm complaining, but I'm really not. But it is still a factor worth knowing going in, because despite doing almost everything to see in Assassin's Creed Origins, I quickly fell into the camp of players who felt that Odyssey and Valhalla too big and unwieldy to handle. Both games felt like busy work. You'll find absolutely none of that in Assassin's Creed Mirage, thankfully. The setting of 9th century Baghdad is a rather beautiful nugget of a place to be in, one that I'm excited to continue exploring precisely due to the map's massively reduced size that makes it much easier to navigate and manage. The city of Baghdad itself most certainly harkens back to the first game's Holy Land setting in terms of how clustered it is, sure, but there's plenty of additional depth and breadth layered in too. As an example, surrounding the four central regions of Harbia, Abbasiyah, Kark and the Round City is an absolutely huge wilderness environment that put me more in mind of the dunes seen in Assassin's Creed Origins' Egypt. Venturing out on horseback here to continue Basim's journey from street thief to master assassin always felt freeing, and a great change of pace when compared to the main city's commotion. Speaking of the setting's districts, Assassin's Creed Mirage wisely elects to scrap the level gating toyed with in the past 3 RPG entries in favour of a cleaner cut and linear approach. This results in a stripped down skill tree that lets you focus on stealth, combat and or resources, depending on your preferred playstyle, and means that when you assassinate someone undetected, it's almost always an instant kill if performed successfully, regardless of the henchman type you target. Assassinations being made reliable again makes taking down enemy encampments, entering a zone to slowly sneak your way to a target, and trying to stay hidden all viable options, and is easily when Assassin's Creed Mirage is at its best. Moments like this especially come to light during the game's many set-piece assassinations, where multiple routes make themselves available. Though IO Interactive's modern Hitman trilogy, this is not. Still, such an approach is made infinitely better thanks to the game's big new gameplay addition, Assassin's Focus. Gifted to you fairly early on in the story, Assassin's Focus sees time temporarily pause to let Basim assess and plan out a chain series of kills of any foes that are in view, working extremely similarly to Splinter Cell's Mark and Execute. The difference here, though, is that the Assassin's Focus meter can only be filled by performing stealth takedowns. It in effect dissuades you from taking on encounters head on. Both these systems neatly feed into one another in a way that rewards player patience and cunning, and it's easily something I'd like to see return in future Assassin's Creed titles. Sadly, by returning to its roots so closely, Assassin's Creed Mirage also sees some unfavourably familiar exploits and annoyances resurface. The biggest is easily combat, whereby standing in a group of foes, waiting for them to attack and then parrying to achieve an instant kill will still work 9 times out of 10. It's simply a less flexible system than the hand-to-hand bouts featured in Assassin's Creed Valhalla or even Odyssey, where there were so many combat options available to you. Having said that though, knowing about this exploit did encourage me not to let encounters ever break out into open fights when whenever at all possible, a feat only made possible by remaining stealthy at all costs. Then there's the climbing, a huge part of any Assassin's Creed game. Much like how it used to be in the original Desmond trilogy, and then a few games thereafter, Basim is only able to climb structures when visible handholds are present. This means that whenever your notoriety is high and you need to make a quick escape, or you just generally want to get around more efficiently, you have to think about the route you're taking as opposed to just assuming that you can climb anything. However, having to be so precise can lead to regular instances where Basim gets caught in a loop of scrambling up a wall, reaching for a rock that isn't there, or worse, bouncing off a wall because a grip just simply fails to register. The Assassin's Creed franchise has grown and expanded out into all sorts of directions since it first debuted in 2007 with the original game, finding solutions that were admittedly sometimes hit and miss in order to overcome these old school problems. In the pursuit of returning to a classic style, it's unfortunate to see so many of them rear their ugly head again. Not to the extent that they ruin the overall gameplay experience, however, it's just a shame that by reinstating so many of these principles that Ubisoft wasn't able to find all new workarounds for them. Assassin's Creed Mirage finds itself caught between two worlds then. On the one hand, it achieves its core goal of returning to the more stealth-centric, tightly contained and manageable systems that I adore and first made the franchise great. But on the other, meanwhile, it doesn't meaningfully iterate on many of them in the attempt to be overly faithful. I enjoyed my time sneaking through Baghdad and its surrounding sandy dunes as Basim a lot, and small mechanical strides have been taken. That said, without much true innovation to speak of, it ends up feeling more like a greatest hits album, failing to carve out a unique identity by playing hardly any tunes of its own. We give Assassin's Creed Mirage 3 stars out of 5. So there you have it guys, in terms of my full thoughts about Assassin's Creed Mirage. Let me know in the comments section below about whether you plan on picking this up, and if so, how excited you are. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the Mirror Gaming YouTube channel to stay up to date with all future reviews and other types of content. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.